I believe today's January 6th hearing was one of those events, one of the events that will be remembered in American history as a turning point. And many people have said these things in the last few hours, so I suppose I'm echoing many of them. What I'm not echoing, or what I am even more so echoing, I should say, is are my warnings from way back when, from November of 2020 onward. And it gives me no pleasure to say that my predictions have come true. It doesn't give me any pleasure to say that. Yesterday, Judge, or not yesterday, today, yesterday for me, because it was 1 in the morning when I went to bed. I'm on the other side of the world. Um, and Judge Luttig made some very, very important statements. And I'm going to paraphrase it and start by saying that he says that Donald Trump and his supporters and his allies present are a clear and present danger to American democracy, and that he continues his attacks in open and plain view. Many people have been saying this for quite some time now. Uh, Now it's part of the congressional record. Now it can be televised all over the world. Now the world is on notice, the country is on notice, and most importantly, the conservatives are on notice because Judge Luttig is as conservative as anybody can get. He is a mentor to Ted Cruz. He John Eastman clerked under him, and he was Mike Pence's go-to guy. And when I first heard about Mike Pence seeking advice from a federal judge, I was like, "Oh, there we go with another corrupt federal judge." But then, I listened to his interview with Frontline PBS. It was like a 3 hour interview, and you heard how fast he speaks. So I had to speed that YouTube video up. So you get to watch it on Frontline PBS. It's still on YouTube. So go watch it. We speed it up. Uh, it it should wake up the real conservatives of our country. It should. I mean, there are many Republicans who don't say anything, who just go and vote Republican. I mean, there are many people who do that. There are many people who don't like talking about politics. You just go and vote, and you'll never know what their political affiliations are. And you know, but the political affiliation part of it is not an issue right now. I mean, we have transcended partisan politics, and if today's hearing wasn't a wake up call to the nation, I don't think anything will be. I mean, I don't think a prosecution would either. I mean, of course, there will be prosecution. I stand by it. I stand by the fact that Merrick Garland will indict Donald Trump and his co conspirators in more than one felony. The reason why I didn't say just now seditious conspiracy is because John Eastman will most definitely be charged with seditious conspiracy. But I believe that the way that Donald has played it would make it tougher for the Department of Justice to pursue a seditious conspiracy charge against him. He's most definitely going to be charged with incitement of insurrection. That is, uh, that's a given. By this hearing, by uh, what John Eastman did, and how much of it, obviously, he was Donald's personal attorney. He was he What does an attorney do? The attorney represents the wish of the client. It's not the attorney who goes and does everything. The attorney is doing what their client wants them to do. Who was John Eastman's client? Donald Trump. So the case in favor of Donald's conviction of seditious conspiracy is still very strong. But as I've said before, Donald has orchestrated this plan in such a way that he can just cut and run and cut and run and cut and run. And each of the people that he cuts and runs follow that same exploiting due process, delay, obstruct justice pattern that Bannon started out with the contempt of Congress charge, which is still going on, by the way. His motion to dismiss the case was rejected. Also, during the hearing, there was a letter that was issued by the Department of Justice saying that they need documents from January 6th committee in order to further prosecutions. Now, this goes to both the January 6th committee and the Department of Justice. Y'all need to go ahead and cooperate with each other, okay? There has to be a level of cooperation between the two branches of government. And I have said this over and over and over again. Many scholars are saying that a criminal referral by the committee is going to make things political. Excuse me, it's already political. It can't get any more political. We are in a constitutional crisis. You have to understand that. When you get to the point of a constitutional crisis, partisan politics take a back seat. So we have to, where was I? This is what happens when you go unscripted, you know? So John Eastman is going to be indicted for seditious conspiracy. So is Donald Trump, is my bet, even to this day. But the committee and the Department of Justice need to cooperate. They need, I said that, oh, that's what I said, that they need to make a criminal referral. And it is purely symbolic on many ways, but in one critical way, it's that symbol is important, which is the United States government, the way that our branches and the separation of powers works is that when all three branches of government are in agreement on one issue, the government's power to seek redress, to cure that issue, is at its peak, is the highest. So the Supreme Court understood this, despite them being compromised in so many ways today. They issued two very narrow rulings in Trump v. Thompson. First, they denied the risk of the block of the National Archive documents, and when they did that, they issued a narrow ruling that says pretty much cut out an exception for these documents for the committee. And the second ruling was a certiorari denial of Trump's appeal. So what did the Supreme Court say when it denied appeal and when it granted the documents to the committee, and specifically said that the issue of executive privilege of a former POTUS has not been discussed because it was not brought up by Donald Trump. That was probably the only issue that the Supreme Court was going to talk about or thought was relevant in this case. But for that, though, the Supreme Court allowed the National Archive documents to go to the committee, which means the Supreme Court assented. It gave its stamp of approval, saying that we have not completely adjudicated the issue of executive privilege or the executive privilege of a former POTUS, but we will allow this particular congressional committee to have these particular sets of documents from the National Archives as they pertain to January 6th. It is a laser pointed, precise, assent, signaling we are in agreement with you. Okay? That's why the committee and now the executive branch part of it, which is the Department of Justice, and the committee, which is the congressional part of it, they need to collaborate and cooperate and bring together the powers of the three branches of government. This is a case of first impression. This is beyond anything that we have ever considered before. There is no precedent for what is happening. A former president of the United States, who was then president of the United States, has never attacked our democracy before. And this person continues to attack our democracy. So we need to wake up. And about Mike Pence, this is the last thing I want to talk about. And people have analyzed, and people will analyze all of these hearings for years to come. And I suspect that the third hearing is going to be one of those big ones. And by the way, even with 3 hearings, it's blown Watergate out of the park. The third is Mike Pence. Mike Pence had the power under Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to remove Donald Trump along with Donald Trump's cabinet. But instead of that, he stood mute. Yes, he stood by, he did his duty of saying that he didn't have any discretion in counting the electoral votes. But what about his discretionary use of the 25th Amendment if he thinks that the country is in a crisis? The country was in a crisis at that point when he had knowledge that Donald Trump and John Eastman were orchestrating a plan that was not only illegal but criminal. I mean, why are there all these attorneys all around the vice president, on all other officials? What are they doing? Have they never looked at a statute before? Like, you have to. It boggles my mind that I saw what he was doing on November 4th. I followed it for a week. And on November 11th, I made the warning of seditious conspiracy under 18 U.S.C. 2384. And today, 3 people have already pled guilty to it. A dozen of them are indicted for it. And we are talking about it in the congressional committee that is discussing the attack on our democracy from within. If I can do it sitting on the other side of the planet, not being a practicing attorney, just by looking at the facts and going up and looking at the statute, why weren't other attorneys doing this? Why weren't the ones around Mike Pence telling him to? Why didn't he invoke the 25th? I think that, the committee has done a great job on a shoestring budget and in record time, considering what they've had to deal with. But one point of contention I have with today's hearing is the chairman saying that Mike Pence is courageous or that Mike Pence is in any way a hero. Judge Luttig was. He was not in a position of responsibility, that had a duty of care, that had an obligation under the Constitution to invoke the 25th when he found objectively that the president was incapacitated or could not perform the duties of the office. But he didn't do that. Judge Luttig didn't have that position, and yet he issued the tweet, the thread in September that said this, that gave Mike Pence the spine to stand by the fact that he has no power to change the vote. So, just by standing around, he became a hero? No. And about the other cabinet members who resigned, DeVos and Bill Barr and all of the others that were standing mute or resigned or slowly sort of weaseled away, they didn't stand and do their duty. The 25th Amendment, Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, is there for a reason. And they did not set that plan into motion. They did not do their duty. And Mike Pompeo is complicit. When all this was happening, he went onto a public stage he was Secretary of State at the time. And he said he looks forward to a second Trump presidency, second term. Remember that. And I hope the Department of Justice remembers that. Like, you think I'm sorry, I'm a little riled up, but if I can look at it from this far away, and I've spent less than a year in court, my experience, then why can't other attorneys? Why can't people who were around Mike Pence? Why can't people who are around the true conservatives of our country today? This is a clear and present danger to our republic. We are in the middle of it. We are in the middle of this brainwashing, seditious disinformation campaign that Donald Trump has been waging ever since he first heard that he lost the election decisively. He knows he lost it, and he even believes he lost it. But that's not the point. Because the money coming in wants him to keep on playing this game. Because all the other state and local officials who are going out now and obstructing votes. Couy Griffin, who is going to be sentenced tomorrow in connection with the insurrection, he's currently blocking primary votes in New Mexico. In fact, the state of New Mexico has recommended him for further prosecution. He's going to be sentenced tomorrow in connection with January 6th. You have Doug Mastriano. You have that Kelly guy from Michigan. And because of the disinformation, specifically because of Donald Trump's big lie, because of this constant attack on our electoral process, that the GOP has now all but officially rubber stamped, more and more and more inundated, isolated people who only watch Fox News or follow ultra conservative, right-wing Steve Bannon talk show, Alex Jones talk show, and that's all they listen to. This is all they believe, the disinformation. And they pick up their guns and they pick up their batons and they pick up their weapons and they attack Congress. And that's what they did. So where are the goddamn lawyers? And what's your bar card worth if you're not going to stand up right now? Okay, I'm done. That's all I'm going to talk to you about today. And for full disclosure, this is a known unscripted episode, but this is my Matchbox script today because it was just way too much. I think I covered everything. Anyway, wake up, people. Wake up.